Mixing with Mike Bootcamp tip, creating a 3D soundstage for your mix. I have something here that is very early stages. I literally have just levels and panning. I have a console channel strip set up, but there's basically no settings on it. It's just running through the preamps. And I just wanted to demonstrate something that is like a simple way of kind of understanding how to stage a mix and how you can make that a powerful part of the work that you do. One of the things that makes a mix sound professional is the way that the sound escapes the speakers. We hear it all the time, right? When we're working on or listening to some production that we really love or some song that we really love and we're listening to it, it's as if the speakers aren't there. We feel like we're making a connection with it in some way. One of the ways to make that connection is to put the music in the same environment as the listener. And most of the time, the way that you want to do this is integrated in a way that is very it's not something that you hear, it's something that you feel, is basically what I'm going to say. So what I have here is like a whole series of tracks, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to do this from scratch just so you could see like I'm not presetting something up just to kind of make it, like that I sorted out for 4 hours and make it look easy, right? So I'm just going to put a couple of like reverb returns, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up like the most simple staging of a mix. I'll make these like bright and light blue so they're kind of annoying. And what I'm going to do is I'm not going to use like anything. Let me just use like a simple, like, you see me use like something like the Reverb. So I know it really well, but I'm not picking this. In other words, it's not like I'm picking some special reverb plugins, the only thing that would make this work. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to set these two inputs up. So I'll assign some buses to them. So 11, 12, 13, 14. And then what I'm going to do here, and this is not necessarily the way that I would do this for a mix, although this really works really well when you want to do things like, have a group of musicians sound like they're in a club or something like that. This kind of technique would work really well. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up two basic reverbs here. And one of them is going to be my reverb, and I'm going to kind of like my back reverb, right? So this is going to be more of like a depth reverb. So let me just call it down. Let me call it depth, right? So this is my reverb depth. And this one is going to be my reverb front, right? So this is going to be out like a front or width reverb, right? So what we're doing here is we're going to have basically two reverb components. One reverb is going to be adding a layer of depth, right? So you're going to feel the sense of the sound field opening up backward. And the other one is going to kind of pull out, wrap around the side of your head. So I'm going to use a little bit of width effect. And I just want to kind of show you something just to kind of give you a raw idea. So what I'm going to start with is I have these sends feeding into here. And I'm going to feed something in, and I'm just going to dial in like a quick reverb. So I'll probably start with this. I'm going to go with a smaller thing. I'm just going to go with a basic room kind of sound. And I'm going to end up doing something smaller here. So let's just play through it here, and then we'll kind of work it out.
Didn't notice till then. Who you fooling? 'Cause I don't believe your lies no more when you're talking. I just know you're clowning. Who you fooling? 'Cause I don't believe your lies no more. You're trying, you lost me, thinking that you could leave me. Losing all the lies that you tell.
Okay, so I may or may not use early reflections here, but what I'm going to do here is just kind of work with this. I want something pretty open, so I'll leave the diffusion down low. I'm not going to make this like a dense reverb. I want it basically to set a stage or an environment, right?
You looking, I didn't notice till then. Who you fooling? 'Cause
Right, and again, I want to feel this more or less. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take this, I'm going to copy it, and then I'm going to take and put like some kind of a width processing. So let me just use this. I really love it. Simple, it's free. Can't get any better than that, right? So I'm just going to go super wide with it. I'm going to stereoize it. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to set up another set of sends here. So this will go to 13, 14.
You looking, I didn't notice till then. Who you fooling? 'Cause I don't believe your lies no more when you're talking. I just know you're clowning. Who you fooling? 'Cause I don't believe your lies no more. You're trying, you lost me.
right? So just want to get a little bit of, like something that spreads out wide, right? So I have all these basic elements in here. And now when I blend these two elements in here, I have something that should mimic somewhat more of a depth field.
You looking, I didn't notice till then.
Oops. Solo isolated here.
You looking, I didn't notice till then. Who you fooling? 'Cause I don't believe your lies no more when you're talking. I just know you're clowning. Who you fooling? 'Cause I don't believe your lies no more.
I'm going to roll off a little bit more top end on this one. And then here on the one that goes to the front.
You looking, I didn't notice till then. Who you fooling?
I'm going to open up the top end a little bit more so we hear a little bit more of that. So things that come from farther away are darker. The high frequency energy gets lost. Things that are up closer, more immediate, are going to be a bit brighter, okay? And so that will give a sense of things kind of lifting out forward. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to blend these two different elements in. But what I'm going to do here is I'm not going to just put everything everywhere. Like let's just say that let's start with the rhythm section, kind of leaning more towards the backside, and the vocals kind of pulling out more towards the front, right? So I'm going to divide it up a little bit, and then maybe I'll mix some of the different elements in different ways, right? So let's just start here with this.
Looking, I didn't notice.
These are just the early reflections. I'll sometimes use this instead of the reverb itself. Right, just so you hear it. Just notice how, just notice the feel of the rest of the instrumentation, how it kind of adds a clarity and the warmth to everything and adds a little bit of depth to everything. So it adds a layer of depth. So you're not hearing like additional reverb, really. You're getting this feeling like things are opening up. Now let's put the vocal in, and let's mix in this more width processing to lift the vocal out a little bit forward.
You looking, I didn't notice till then. Who you fooling?
Oh, did I just mix that in on the wrong element? How about that? Spectacular. All right, let's see what this sounds like if I put it over here.
You
Amazing.
looking, I didn't notice till then.
Okay, so I like that. Let's go back over here and let's mix in the vocal, right? Similar thing, except this has got the width processing on it. Here we go.
You looking, I didn't notice till then. Who you fooling? 'Cause I don't believe your lies no more when you're talking. I just know you're clowning. Who you fooling? 'Cause I don't believe your lies no more. You're trying, you love me, thinking that you could leave me, losing all the lies that you tell.
Right, so now just notice the total sound field, the depth field and the front field. So just kind of this feeling about whether, and this, again, this is just a raw mix, just like levels and panning, okay? So we haven't even gotten to processing yet where this would be even more of an effect. But let's just check this out and just see if you can notice it, and I'll blend it in and out to kind of get like a good balance between the two.
You looking, I didn't notice till then. Who you fooling?
So the key is mixing this in such a way that you feel the effect more than hear it. So if I have it in there, it's going to start to muddy things up and obscure things. I never want to be in that place. It's a feeling kind of thing. I really want to focus on the feeling component of it. I want to focus on this idea like it sounds like, it feels like the mix is sort of escaping the speakers. That's the idea.
You looking, I didn't notice till then. Who you fooling? 'Cause I don't believe your lies no more when you're talking. I just know you're clowning. Who you fooling? 'Cause I don't believe your lies no more. You're trying, you love me, thinking that you could leave me, losing all the lies that you tell.
Now, once you start to actually shape all of the individual sounds and you kind of work with them a little bit, usually this type of breakdown in some way, and I usually use this with early reflections, will be broken down on a more grouping by grouping thing. In other words, I may have some variation of this that's for the drums and percussion, but tweaked in a little bit. A lot of times I'll just use the early reflection component of it, or I'll have some kind of very short reverb that creates that sense of feeling. That would allow me to add a little bit of warmth if the drums sound cold, allow me to add a little presence if the drums sound dull, right? And there I can mix that in. It will help to add that texture to the sound to help complement whatever issues may underlie the original tracks. If I go then to the guitar tracks, I can do something starting with the same basic thing, but shape it a little bit different so that it complements the guitars. Maybe it's a little bit shorter. I didn't add any pre-delay, but maybe putting in a little bit pre-delay adds a little bit more depth to it. And work with things and elements that way. Now I can start to build the mix slowly just with feeling type of effects, feeling kind of reverb effects that give that sense of separation, of openness, where you start to feel the layers of sounds separate from each other. Now, as you start to work with it, and this is something I usually do after I've gone through basic equalization and compression and those basic things. So this is really stepping ahead. But just to show you the basic concept, this is the simplest way to do it. I'll often do this in situations where I need to do a mix that is more like I have like a rock band and they want it to sound like they're in a club. Then I would put some kind of a club reverb type of thing and do a similar type of thing where I have the back side of the club, the front side of the club, and then I can mix it in. And that may be the one case where I use it more on a stem level, the way that I have it here. I just wanted to add a little bit of pre-delay in here just to kind of see if we can create a little bit of separation there, just to add a little bit to the depth, and then we'll wrap this up.
You looking, I didn't notice till then. Who you fooling? 'Cause I don't believe your lies no more when you're talking. I just know you're clowning. Who you fooling? 'Cause I don't believe your lies no more. You're trying, you love me, thinking that you could leave me, losing all the lies that you tell. The one who
So for any of you who are trying to, get your mixes to sort of escape the speakers, this is like a very powerful thing. Now, it works, of course, in conjunction with a lot of other decisions you make, the way that you apply the compression, the way that you apply the equalization, right? How you shape it, how you get all the different elements to separate and kind of work together. And the more space that you create in between all the different elements of the mix, the more effective this type of processing becomes, right? So it's part of a layering process, all pushing or rowing in the same direction to achieve a certain depth result that allows your mix to kind of come to life or to have some kind of feeling like it's escaping the speakers, and it will grab the listener's attention better. We hear these things all the time. They may not be so obvious, but most of what makes the mixes that, the great mixes that I hear work are not the very obvious things, the effects and distortion, things that you hear. It's all the underlying stuff that puts those elements of the mix in a position where they occupy their own unique space so that when you apply that processing, it really operates independent without smearing or distorting or messing up the whole mix. Such an important principle, and really one that if you can really master this, you just go a long, long way to making your mix work just that much better all the way around, right? We all want the music to really come to life. That's always the goal. This is one way of helping you to sort of achieve that dimensional soundstage effect that helps your music sort of escape the speakers. This is a boot camp tip, right? From Mixing with Mike. It's part of the boot camp course. There are just loads of things. I have a whole quarter. It's a 52-week program. This whole one quarter, 13 weeks, that's just about effects and setting the sound stage, working with early reflections and different effects and reverb and how to process them. There's just layers and layers of additional information about how you can make these sound staging effects more unique, more tonally colored to help balance or add warmth to drums, brightness or presence to vocals, etc. 52-week program, check it out. And you'll learn a lot about music production. You'll learn a lot about mixing. You're learning a lot about mixing strategies and the way mixes are developed and how these things, ideas are developed so that you know when and how to use them. And check it out. You might like it. There you go. There's a boot camp tip from Mixing with Mike, creating a 3D sound stage for your mix.